My fail is going to be more controversial, and I feel as if online, and generally as a Gestalt in America, that therapy fixes everything. And I feel like it's sort of becoming the new take this supplement to solve all your problems. I think overprescription of therapy can pathologize normal life. Every frustration, conflict, or sadness is framed as something that needs therapy.
So there's something going on prior to men going to therapy that is stopping them from going to therapy. And there's something that's happening prior to going to therapy with women that is pushing them to go, right? And a big reason why I believe is because of men like Scott Galloway coddling men and pacifying men and then demonizing therapy and things like it.
First off, you call therapy a Birkin bag for your feelings. You label it a luxury good. Now, I want to give you credit where it's due. You are right that therapy is too expensive, the system is broken. I know this better than anyone. But when a respected NYU professor tells millions of men that therapy is just a luxury for the privileged, you aren't critiquing the economy, you're validating stigma.
Hey, that's flambe. That's beyond cooked. That's flambe right there, baby. That was top tier Gordon Ramsay chef cooking. I am not a fan of Scott Galloway's whatsoever. I just want to say that. Scott Galloway is a great grifter. I will give him his props. He's a great grifter. I've been on the hate Scott Galloway train for pretty much since the first time I've heard. I think the very first time I heard him was on Bill Maher's show, which I fucking can't stand Bill Maher either. But he I think I saw some stuff and I was like, that's not all the way crazy. You know what I mean? Like, that's not crazy or whatever. But then it was like, by the next time I heard him, I was like, oh, this dude's fucking trash. And I've been hating him ever since. So I have like a lot of videos on him. And a lot of us in this space do. We are constantly pushing back against his rhetoric that's what you got to do. You got to constantly challenge it. You can't ever let it breathe. It is what it is. As long as he is relevant, then I'm going to address it. Scott Galloway, though, the genius about his grifting and about his approach, all grifters, or a lot of these grifters, give you like a nugget of truth surrounded by a bunch of bullshit, right? Scott Galloway, being the pseudo-intellectual that he is, he's no different. He gives you a grain of truth. He says some things that he says the thing and you like react to it in a visceral way. So you kind of bond with it, you're like, yeah, that's right. And then it's like, but if you don't, it's only right if you don't unpack it anymore, but the way that grifters work, he says this one thing, this kernel of truth. But the rest of the stuff he says is so harmful and toxic, it makes the kernel of truth null and void. Like, you shouldn't have to consume poison to get to like a good, like something good in whatever you're consuming. And that's what his content is to me. It's like the kernel of truth that we probably need to hear is not, it's like even that isn't worth us accepting the other toxic things that he's saying. And for the people who consume his content and listen to him, he ends up doing way more harm than good for them and subsequently for society as a whole, right? Because the people he's talking to are men. He's pretty much addressing men all the time.
My fail is going to be more controversial, and I feel as if online, and generally as a Gestalt in America, that therapy fixes everything. And I feel like it's sort of becoming the new take this supplement to solve all your problems. I think overprescription of therapy can pathologize normal life. Every frustration, conflict, or sadness is framed as something that needs therapy. Saying that you just need more therapy to fix this problem is a little bit like me saying you're frustrated by airport delays, well, you should fly private. I'm not anti-therapy, I'm anti-oversimplification, and that it is a powerful tool for many people, but to be clear, folks, logistically and financially, it is not a universal fix here.
Now, that is parts of what he is saying I 100% agree with. And I say this, and anybody that has heard me talk about therapy has heard me like, I don't like to tell people to go to therapy. I don't. I don't like to tell people to do that because I know that for so long, so much of my life, I didn't have access to therapy. I feel like it becomes very classist at some point to tell people just to go to therapy. You know what I mean? Like we live in a country where 30 million people are still underinsured. I'm sorry, still uninsured. And then there are millions of other people that are underinsured. And even if you have insurance, you may not be able to afford the copay. Even if you can afford the copay, you may not be able to find the time off. You know what I mean? Like there's so many layers to this that are systemic and not interpersonal that I just don't arbitrarily go around telling people to go to therapy anytime I disagree with them or when they have bad takes or when they're problematic or whatever the case may be. Because the truth of the matter is that people who go to therapy lie. People who go to therapy will lie to their therapist and manipulate their therapist. So telling a narcissist to go to therapy, I don't think is going to help. I don't think it's going to help. I don't think going to therapy for most of these men is actually the thing that they need, to be honest with you. I personally don't agree, don't think that personally, right? They need they need to seek help of some sort. I think that they can help themselves. And really that's what they need to do anyway, because they're going to need, like, whether you go to therapy or not, when you're in therapy, you still got to do the work on your own in the dark and the shadows. You know what I'm saying? What they would call the shadow work, right? You have to do that even when nobody's around. I know that that's not what shadow is, but I'm just saying in this case, I'm using it in that way. Like the shadow work, the way that I'm using it though right now is I hate when people mess up words, so I'm not going to even do that. But basically though, all I'm saying is that if you are going to go to therapy, you're still going to have to like unpack shit when the therapist isn't there. Because everybody doesn't go to therapy once a week. I don't think even people that go to therapy don't go to therapy every fucking week. Some people go to therapy once every 3 months. Some people go to therapy once every 6 months. They go to therapy when they need to, when they really feel like some type of like pressure, whatever the case may be, then they'll go to therapy, right? I'm like, I'm being as I think I'm being as realistic as I can when I talk about therapy in these cases. Again, that's why I don't just be like, go to therapy. Oh, you're a piece of shit. Go to therapy. You guys aren't even in therapy. Like, I don't say stuff like that. Because again, I know what it's like to not have access to any healthcare, let alone therapy. I know what it's like not to have fucking dental. Um, you know what I'm saying? Having to pay for a $3,000 procedure on your teeth that you can't afford, so you tell the dentist to pull it. I've been there. I know what that shit feels like. So I'm not going to sit here and tell people to go to therapy. I think that is very disrespectful just to say that as like, like he said, like a band-aid, like, yeah, just go to therapy. Like, that's why I don't do that. But what I also don't do is minimize the effects that therapy can have. I also don't deter people from going to therapy. Because you can do both of those things at the same time. You can acknowledge that like a lot of people don't have access to therapy while simultaneously not making it seem like making people feel like there's nothing they can do and they shouldn't try to get to therapy. You know what I mean? Like they shouldn't try to seek some form of therapy, professional wise, right? On a professional level. Like I think that is something that a person like Scott Galloway doesn't do, and we're going to get into it more. You're going to hear what he's saying, but that's his problem when he says this shit. I'm like, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, this part of it. And he does this a lot. He's like really good at this.
And the argument isn't therapy is bad. It's that therapy is being marketed like supplements, promised as the answer to everything, pushed by people who profit from the narrative and stripped it of the nuance required to be truly useful. My therapy bomb, a nuclear fucking detonation, fluoride in the water that would be as good as therapy for the vast majority of young men who supposedly all need to work on themselves before they can make money or have a relationship, would be higher wages and lower chronic stress, $25 an hour minimum wage, paid family leave, universal child care. And what I see online is everyone stating that mental health is the only answer. No, it's an answer.
I think that you're right, that it has to be a well-rounded thing, and not everyone avails themselves to therapy in the ways that are possible. We're going to get a lot of pushback, but that's okay.
I believe, I haven't looked up the numbers on this, but knowing what I know about this country and about how the patriarchy functions, I have to believe that men have more access to therapy than women do, I should say. But the fact that more women are in therapy, to me, kind of blows up Scott's whole, like, this is the solution. The solution is just to pay men more. Again, I agree with the lady at the end when she says that's a part of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, we all Americans need to, not just men. Men don't need to make 20. And he's so out of touch. $25 an hour is not enough money. $50 an hour is where we should, $50 an hour is where we should end up. We should probably start at $75 an hour and let's negotiate somewhere between $50 and $75 an hour. That should be the minimum wage in this country right now, between $50 and $75 an hour, right? But anyways, $25 an hour is not enough. It's not enough. You do the math on that, right? $25 an hour ain't doing much. So you still can't buy a house. You still can't afford to have health insurance. You still can't take, vacations and pay for college. And, we're trying to do that, which that's what we need to be doing. $25 an hour, nowhere near that. So, and that goes for both men and women. And if I think about men and women, and I'm thinking about the access that men have, presumably, to therapy over women, then why are more women in therapy? So there's something going on prior to men going to therapy that is stopping them from going to therapy. And there's something that's happening prior to going to therapy with women that is pushing them to go, right? And a big reason why I believe is because of men like Scott Galloway coddling men and pacifying men and then demonizing therapy and things like it and rationalizing men staying away from it, right? Now, that, if you listen to that in a vacuum, that's not the worst take, though, by the way, right? Can we be honest? That's not the worst take, what he's saying. I don't think it's the worst take, right? It could almost be innocuous, almost, because he wasn't vilifying therapy. He wasn't. And he was, and again, yes, we are in a society where right now, I think the people have weaponized the term go to therapy. I agree. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. I see it on both sides. And when I say both sides, I mean, when we're talking about this through the lens of gender, I see this on the side of extremely misogynistic men who have never been to therapy themselves, telling women they're crazy and they need to go to therapy. And I also see women who actually do go to therapy, mind you, have been to therapy, telling men they need to go to therapy. And the men can't afford to go to therapy. And in some instances, the women can't afford to go to therapy, and so on and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I've seen it on both sides. Let's be adults here. That's a real thing. That's happening. Yes. Yes. Right? I'm not denying any of that. But again, the thing that I'm pushing back against the most is this idea that though a lot of people don't have access to therapy, I'm going to push back against the idea every time that therapy isn't worth it. Just in general, therapy isn't worth it. And that's Scott Galloway's overall take.
Scott, we need to talk. You recently slid into my comment section on my last video and said, thoughtful comment, thanks, when I critiqued your views on dating.
And the thing about Scott Galloway, that's like, he's such full of shit, and this is why I never believe grifters like him, is because of all the things to attack that are problematic for men, that are causing men, strife and things of that nature, therapy would be at the bottom of the list. You know what I'm saying? Like, therapy is at the bottom of the fucking list. Like, why are we talking about therapy? It doesn't even make sense. Like, why? Like, who fucking cares? Fuck, like, why? Like, let's, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, let's talk about the low wages. Let's talk about the fact that we don't have health insurance. as a country, right? Let's talk about the 40-hour work week that should be fucking not, by the way, not only do I think Americans minimum wage should be raised to somewhere between $50 and $75 an hour, but I think the American work week should be no higher than 30 hours a week. No higher than 30 hours a week. And we need health care. And we need parental leave and all that other shit. All those other things need to happen. We can afford it as a country. More than afford it. And there can still be 100 millionaires and maybe even a few billionaires. But no Elon Musks, right? No Bloombergs.
Scott, we need to talk. You recently slid into my comment section on my last video and said, thoughtful comment, thanks, when I critiqued your views on dating. And I thought, hey, maybe we're making progress here. But then you dropped this article, The Cult of Therapy, and in it you specifically call out TikTok therapists and mental health influencers. Scott, I am him. That is me. You're subtweeting me in a Substack. So, since I might be the TikTok therapist you're worried about, let's actually look at the evidence you're giving young men, because honestly, kind of reckless. First off, you call therapy a Birkin bag for your feelings. You label it a luxury good. Now, I want to give you credit where it's due. You are right that therapy is too expensive. The system is broken. I know this better than anyone. But when a respected NYU professor tells millions of men that therapy is just a luxury for the privileged, you aren't critiquing the economy. You're validating stigma. You're telling average guys that their depression isn't a medical issue, it's just a lack of hustle. You're telling them that processing trauma is something only rich people do because
Or it's not just a lack of hustle, or it's just you need to make more money and all your problems will go away.
issue is just a lack of hustle. You're telling them that processing trauma is something only rich people do because they have too much time on their hands. That doesn't make men tougher, Scott. It makes them silent, and silent men don't succeed, they implode. But then it gets worse. You literally suggest that young people should worry less about their livers and drink more alcohol because it acts as a social lubricant. Scott,
What? You told what? You told men to drink more in America? In the US of A? You told men to drink more? Oh Lord. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, what? He, that's reckless. That's reckless. That's crazy. That is insane. Oh man, and he's doing exactly what these men want. This is the coddling that I'm talking about. He just got done laying out like a few good points, right? And then boom, here he goes. Oh no, you don't need therapy. Just drink more. What? Sick.
and drink more alcohol because it acts as a social lubricant. Scott, this is 1950s Mad Men logic. You think that Gen Z is struggling because they aren't drinking enough? Alcohol is a depressant. You're telling the most anxious generation in history to pour gasoline on the fire just so they can tolerate a happy hour? That isn't a solution to loneliness, Scott. That is just borrowing social confidence at a very high interest rate. An economic metaphor for my finance guy. You aren't helping them connect, you're just helping them numb out. If you send a lonely young man to a bar without social skills or emotional regulation, the things they learn in therapy, he doesn't come home with a community, he comes home with a hangover and more shame. That's not social lubrication, that's actually maladaptive coping. Finally, you fall back on your favorite trope. Action over introspection. You tell men to hit the gym, get rich, and become providers. Scott, I have treated those providers. I have men sit on my couch who have the six-pack, the stock portfolio, the C-suite job, and they are absolutely miserable. Why? Because you can't bench press an avoidant attachment style. You can't compound interest your way out of childhood neglect. You're telling men to build a fortress of success to hide behind instead of teaching them the skills to actually let someone in. Look, I get it. You think feelings are messy and economics are tidy. But Scott, if your article showed up as an intake form on my clipboard, here's what I'd write. Presenting problem, feelings feel dangerous. Coping strategy, attack the existence of feelings. The whole thing reads like someone who walked past a therapy office once, felt something unfamiliar in his chest, panicked, and wrote a Substack about it. My door and my DMs are always open to you.
Hey. Hey. That's flambe. That's beyond cooked. That's flambe right there, baby. That was top tier Gordon Ramsay chef cooking. That was, yes, absolutely. That he cooking like my granny used to cook type shit. Wow. Yeah. I don't even have any notes after that. That metaphor was beautiful and it was spot on. And it's like you can't have these conversations without being nuanced. And a lot of us that are in these spaces, we know, like he just said in many was like, yeah, no, the system is broken and da 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 da. Like we all like, but we like I don't go out of my way to make videos telling men that therapy isn't worth it or that like you don't need it or what, you know what I mean? Like I don't do that. I don't do that. Because again, there are a thousand things more important than therapy, to be honest with you. Like as far as trying, like, I guess, like determine from going or rationalize why men don't go or to make them feel better for not going, whatever it is, there are just like so many more pressing issues. I don't care about that. I will always, though, have time for a man telling men it's okay, don't go to therapy, just drink more. I'll make all the time in the world to address that. I'll make all the time in the world to address that, and I'll do it every single time because that's fucking nuts. That is insane. That's an insane approach to getting healthy. That doesn't make sense at all. Scott knows it too. That's crazy.